Hi, this is John Colo with okraw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. In this episode, we're going to answer your guys' questions. If you guys do have a question you'd like me to answer directly, post it in the link down below, which will go to my community tab, so you can post your question there. I will basically select some of the questions out of that area and maybe on my YouTube channel under random videos to answer in a Q&A like this next month. All right, let's get into the questions. First question is from Pity Chow 02. My New Year's resolution is to start growing greens in my basement apartment. Please recommend types of soil, minerals, nutrients, etc. I need to make my produce super nutritious. You know, what I'm going to tell you is this. I mean, I have a full outdoor garden. This is a 4-foot circular raised bed with 37 plants actually. Actually, this has broccoli. They're starting to bloom. I got cauliflower back there, kale, red kale, spinach, lettuce, kamatsuna, mustard greens, all kinds of stuff growing. And, you know, here's the thing I'm going to tell you guys. Like, I really don't do anything for these. I mean, I have good soil. I enrich the soil. My irrigation system comes on. The sun comes up every day, gives these guys light that they need to grow, photosynthesize. And, you know, nature handles basically, like, all the work except for watering. And I put in some good soil. When you guys grow indoors, you're going to have to control the lights, you're going to have to control the weather, you're going to have to control all these different things, which to me, it takes some of these guys like 60 days to grow. So like you could start from seed, you could plant like, you know, a bunch of heads of lettuce in your apartment, and like 2 months later have like a head or two or 50 heads of lettuce to eat, depending on how much space you're dedicating. That's not a lot of nutrition for the space that you have invested, and especially you're investing in lighting and other things as well, because the problem is the growth cycle is too long to really, you know, benefit you without a lot of expense, inputs, and probability of things going wrong. That's why I recommend, if you guys do want to grow indoors, number one, grow sprouts. Sprouts can be grown in something as simple as a mason jar. They have other contraptions to do that. But grow sprouts. They are more nutritious than large-sized vegetables, because you harvest them within, I mean, I could harvest some of the sprouts I grow in one day, buckwheat sprouts that just grow little tails. You know, you could harvest them in one day to 7 days, depending on the sprout, right? Those are the absolute easiest, and you're going to get the most nutritional bang for the buck. You can soak them in like some ocean solution water that contains up to like 90 different minerals, and water them with ocean solution water, so they may take up additional extra minerals. But here's the thing, most of the nutrients are actually stored within the seed, so that you don't have to provide any major amounts of other nutrients. So that's why it's very important when buying seeds is to get the heaviest seeds that you can. So like, for example, if you're buying seeds and it says 1,000 seeds per pound, right, and then some seeds are 900 seeds per pound, being the same type, you actually want to get the seeds that you get less, because each seed weighs more, there's more germ, there's more nutrition packed inside the seed that will germinate into the nutrients that you will end up eating. Okay? Number two, if you're not going to grow sprouts, then I recommend growing microgreens. My YouTube channel, Growing Your Greens, has many videos on microgreens. I recommend the kit by Larry. Link down below to that video. You basically grow on these cocoa pads that he offers. You can water those with things like kelp, you know, liquid kelp, or things like ocean solutions as well. Those microgreens are ready in 10 to 14 days. You set up a rack, and you can literally harvest one tray a day on like a conveyor belt system, right? I explain this fully in the video, link down below. I honestly don't recommend you guys grow regular vegetables in your house. It's going to just take a long time. You're not going to end up eating a lot of food. You're not going to get a lot of nutritional value, and it's be more work than what it's worth. If you do want to grow something in your house, then I would recommend getting something like an AeroGarden to grow something like herbs, which generally grow a little bit faster. Or if you do want to grow a couple heads of lettuce, get an AeroGarden, because it is a fully contained system with lights and everything that does make it easy for you to grow. That does a decent job. But once again, even over and above that, I recommend growing sprouts and microgreens for the win. Number two, are you going to show us your red light therapy machine? I remember you said it was pricey, but hey, health as well. Thanks, John. You're an inspiration. All right, so my red light machine, basically it's like a box. It's like it's basically like a fluorescent tube lamp, you know, like a shop light, basically, but it's all red LEDs and UV, IR, actually, LEDs, actually. So I bought this like pre-COVID times, like back, yeah, years ago. It's actually made by Grow, and actually I looked them up these days, and actually, while they are still manufacturing lights over in China, they're not selling them in the United States. Or furthermore, you know, when I researched the lights back then, this was like the best I could find for a good price at the time. That being said, I have not looked into red light therapy lately, although I don't imagine it has changed too much. So I wouldn't want to basically show outdated stuff to you guys. So that's what I could say about that. Next question is from Danny-W3G. What's your take on vertical farms that grow greens? All right, so that depends. Vertical farms means they're growing vertically, which like means up a wall, which, you know, in some cases I think, hey, growing outdoors on a wall vertically could be great. You know, the sun hits it, you're growing in soil, and it's like you're modeling nature, except you're just growing them vertically. That being said, most vertical farms are growing inside containers. They're growing hydroponically, which are probably the two main things I would have against them. Now, I do eat lots of hydroponically grown food. Actually, I bought some hydroponically grown lettuce yesterday, not to necessarily eat, but actually to eat the outer leaves, and then I basically harvest it down and keep a few leaves on it and the roots, which then I planted in my garden because I had a few lettuce plants that succumbed to my to my 26-degree freezing weather a few nights ago. That being said, hydroponic farm fruits and vegetables, such as tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, I do buy in the off season, and can be quite good. And if it's the best you could get, I'd rather have something hydroponically grown that's fresher, and actually grown in the United States or from Canada than like imported, you know, organic, like from further away, like from Mexico or whatever. So, you know, I have a video link down below I'll post where I talk about organic versus hydroponic and what specific crops. Actually, I also bought hydroponically grown Kumato tomatoes, which are the brown tomatoes that are more nutritious than the red tomatoes yesterday as well. Like actually probably about 12 pounds of those. So just because it's hydroponic doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. That being said, with vertical farms, generally hydroponic farms will grow greens. And, you know, here's the thing, like, there's a lot of inputs to grow vertically inside a warehouse with lights, tubing, racks, and all these things, and it's not quite the most natural. So I think that, you know, it's better for you to grow your own food at home, sprouts and microgreens, if you have an apartment or a house. If you have outdoors, then grow greens in your garden. Way better than hydroponic. That being said, if you live in a big city and the best you got is like a vertical farm, you know, grown right there that they harvested and you could buy it with the roots on, would be the best, and eat it like the same day, that's great. I mean, I would rather buy that than like, you know, you live in New York City and you get vertical greens locally, or they ship in like organically grown California head lettuce that's like a week old when you get it, right? Good, better, best is what I like to teach. You know, I think that vertical farms are really unsustainable because there's a lot of energy inputs and infrastructure inputs, and a lot of vertical farms have been going out of business. Of course, also things are grown with lights that man is trying to duplicate the sun, and the man cannot duplicate the sun. Well, there's some technologies out there that more closely duplicate the sun, which unfortunately are not being used on a widespread in agriculture. But normally they use LEDs with a very limited spectrum, and when you limit the spectrum of light going to the plants don't produce all the different plant metabolites or plant phytochemicals that they can. So in my opinion, the nutrition will be less. That being said, they probably don't have to spray for bugs or pests or herbicides because they're not having pests inside a controlled environment, which could be looked at as a good thing. But that also may lower nutrition as well, because now the plants get weak because they don't have to like defend themselves and create more isothiocyanates when the bugs eat them, all right, for example. So, I don't know. I hate saying good and bad. Oh, and the other thing, of course, is hydroponically grown. You know, it doesn't have all the soil bacteria interaction, the soil microbiome, and they're probably not adding all the trace minerals that you could add if you're growing in soil. Like I had 70 to 90 different trace minerals in the gardens you see behind me, most in the form of rock dust, also in the form of kelp sprayed on and ocean solids sprayed on. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Good, better, best. Do the best you can. I encourage you always to grow your own food in soil powered by the sun. All right, next question is from Kayla Racer. What's the best juicer for juicing sprouts and microgreens? How well does the Nama J1 do with sprouts and microgreens? Thank you. All right, so for sprouts and microgreens, honestly, I would actually recommend not using a juicer. They're not very juicy, so you don't get a lot of juice out of them. The best is actually to chew them up. I mean, they're so tender anyways. Just chew them up into a mush and swallow. If you do want to process them some way, you want to vacuum blend them because once again, unless you have like thousands of extra trays of sprouts and microgreens, right? If you juice them, you're not going to get a lot of nutrition out of them. A lot of it's going to go away in the pulp. And also you're going to oxidize them a lot more in even some of the best slow juicers out there. Link down below to my video. If I remember the best way to eat microgreens, once again, just eat it, chewing them up or vacuum blending them. If you did want to juice them, then I would recommend a horizontal auger style juicer, such as the Santa 707 or Santa 727 at this time. Links down below if I remember to videos on those machines. The Nama J1 is a vertical juicer, and I do not recommend vertical juicers for juicing sprouts and microgreens. They could clog, jam, and they don't do as well of a job in grinding them up. Next question is from eDense2. How do you balance a high consumption of fruits with cooked foods without the cooked food disrupting the digestion of the fruits, while also eating enough calories, mostly from fruits, to maintain weight? And how do fats come into this balance? All right, so I don't know. I can't tell you all that stuff. I can tell you how I do it. So generally when I eat fruits, like today I had like several blood oranges for breakfast. Actually, I didn't drink my green juice today because I'm out. But I had several blood oranges. Then I came home and actually a few hours later had let's see, steamed purple rice with lupini beans, regeneratively, organically grown from Peru. So, with flax ground up and flax oil and some spirulina mixed in. Yeah, that was a couple hours later. And actually, I think that was the last. Oh, then I had some Go Raw sprouted buckwheat granola. That's what I had so far. And then later today, I'll probably have a salad. And then later on after that, I'll have some heat processed vegetables, probably artichokes. I have a whole bunch of artichokes I got for a good deal. So, here's the thing. I would say just eat the fruits and then, at a later time, then eat some of the heat processed foods. Give it some time in between. Sometimes after I eat my heat processed foods, I might eat a fruit or something or two. But normally if I eat some heat processed foods, then I'm generally going to move, like if I have a cooked, like greens, with mushrooms, beans, and, whatever. Then maybe later I might have some sweet potato, like purple sweet potato, like plain, or artichoke. Sometimes, actually, I just harvested some of my purple potatoes out of my garden, so I could eat that too. So it just varies and depends. You need to find out what works for you. I found out that sometimes when I eat, have a fruit meal and then have like a cooked vegetable meal, I'm fine. It doesn't really bother me. And if you are very sensitive, I would say maybe you got some microbiome issues going on and your bacteria isn't where they need to be. And I would always encourage everybody on a raw vegan diet to do a microbiome test to see where you're at, to see if you need to adjust if you feel the microbiome is important. I know some raw vegans say raw microbiome is not important. I feel it is very important for your long-term health and immediate health, especially with your immune system. And microbiome makes up 70% of our immune system, it's said. And then fats, how do they come into balance? Basically, my diet is not a low-fat diet. I don't eat 10% or less, which I would define as low-fat, which would be no overt fats. I like to eat a handful of nuts. So actually this morning, before I ate my beans, I had a handful of pistachios, and tonight I'll probably, let's see, my salad dressing. It's actually a soup. So it's actually macadamia nuts, walnuts, and pecans blended in a whole bunch of bell pepper juice. So that's diluted in there because I made 7 quarts at a time. So I don't know. That's all I could tell you. That's how I do it, and everybody needs to experiment for themselves. My goal these days is to, eat a good fruit meal, blended smoothies, fruit smoothies with vegetables, or eat some fresh fruits, but also eat other foods as well. I'm not just trying to only eat raw these days. You know, if I eat a little bit of heat processed, so maybe a little bit more here in the winter time when the fruit availability goes down, you know, I'm good with that personally. All right, next question is from Julie Jizz 8984. How are you getting your Ninja Dry Natto currently? I've tried buying on Amazon and my order was canceled twice, and there isn't a way to order from their website. All right, Julie. So actually, I haven't gotten any Ninja Dry Natto. I got it from the trade show, and I basically ate all that, and I thought it was pretty good. But actually, I prefer the freeze-dried natto, which I still am getting from Japan. I haven't done an order in a little bit. I think one time I got it from Amazon, and then one time I've been ordering direct from some Japanese company. I don't know where. If I remember, I'll put a link down below. But yeah, it's just freeze-dried organic natto, which actually the texture is a lot better for me. Although it doesn't have a guaranteed nattokinase, you know, content or K2 content, but I'm sure it's in there. All right. So let's see. Next question is from Vegan Knowledge JJ. When you speak of heat processing, is it above 118 question mark, or whatever the cutoff is that makes it still technically raw, like when we want to eat sweet potatoes, for example, or other potatoes, for example. All right. So when I say heat processing, generally I mean that's not raw, so that's cooked. So if it's above 118, I mean technically, I mean the cutoff point for raw food is 118 is what normal people would say. You could argue with that a little bit depending on the food, the temperature, and all these things. And the dehydrator, you know, I set my dehydrator these days for 120 if I'm keeping it raw, because really the dehydrator you could set it for a little bit hotter and it's still a bit colder in there, and it's the food temperature, not the air temperature. We could get into all that stuff, but technically the raw definition is 118 degrees, but it also depends on the specific food. If you put, you know, almonds in your dehydrator that are raw almonds for like 140, dehydrator at 140, and you soak them and sprout them, they're still going to sprout and germinate because, you know, they're more solid. I mean, if you put something in like leafy greens, it's going to degrade more quickly, I don't know, at a hotter temperature. So, you know, here's the thing. I'm not like super concerned these days as much as I used to be about enzymes. Enzymes are definitely important for us. Enzymes in food are definitely important for us. But I don't think they're the end all be all. So when I talk of heat processing, I talk personally doing it below about you know, either steaming at like 212 or below definitely 240. So that's when I cook in the Instant Pot. It is below 240. So that's when I mean, when I say heat processing, I heat process only in the Instant Pot. That's below 240, and below 240 you don't create all these nasty carcinogens that you can when you heat foods even hotter. So yeah, well, actually last night I cooked homegrown purple sweet potatoes, lilac sweet potatoes, as well as locally grown sweet potatoes, as well as commercial organic sweet potatoes, purple sweet potatoes. In my Instant Pot, had all three. It was fun. So yeah, that's what I tell you. Next question is from Wild Ocean Palooza Woman Gay 2535. I'm an ethical vegan going raw, and I donate money to animal rescue, sanctuaries, and liberation groups. Why are there no raw vegans who run animal sanctuaries? Well, that's a good question, and I can only share my personal opinion on that. I mean, here's the thing I'll say is that most raw vegans they're raw, and vegan is just put into raw because it means plant-based. So think of most raw vegans that's actually raw plant-based eaters, because many, but not all, raw vegans are doing it for their health, not necessarily for the animals, right? As we'll throw up right there, you can see the definition of vegan. You know, it's more of a philosophy and way of living and doing the least harm as much as practicable as possible to other animals and creatures on the planet. Unfortunately, most raw vegans don't have this ethical side of it, and that's just my personal opinion that I've seen. Yes, there are plenty of raw vegans that come from being vegan that then go raw, like yourself. But, you know, a lot of raw vegans come in for the health aspect and call themselves raw vegan, although they don't have the ethical aspect down. That's my personal opinion. And so that's why, you know, not many raw vegans, they're into health, not necessarily in animals. So I haven't seen any raw vegans run animal sanctuaries. Like, you know, there's tons of vegans that run animal sanctuaries. On the flip side, I will say that a lot of raw vegans I know personally have rescued animals, including myself. My dog was basically going to be abandoned and, like, you know, surrendered. and many raw vegans adopt their animals from shelters and, don't buy them. So all I could say is that people out there are doing the best they can, and I would encourage people that are vegan, that want raw vegans to go more vegan in the true sense as ethical vegan versus just a health food or plant-based diet vegan to, do that, to educate people about these things, all right? Let's see, next question is from Michelle T. 2312. Hey John, love your videos and knowledge regarding store-bought beans as opposed to fresh cooked after sprouting. I've heard that beans not consumed after the first day of cooking lose pretty much all nutrients and become starch. What's your opinion? I really want to eat some store-bought for the convenience, so I hope you have time to reply. All right, so here's the thing. Just how your question is phrased, I've heard that beans not consumed after the first day of cooking lose pretty much all nutrients. So I can absolutely guarantee you that beans after the first day of cooking don't lose all nutrients. Can they lose some nutrients? Yes, but they don't lose all nutrients. And do they become more starch? Well, let's uncover that. So here's the thing, basically if I eat beans out of a box, I'll open the box and usually eat them or add them to a salad and then mix it up, and then I'll basically store that salad under vacuum for the next 4 days if I made a big batch prep. They don't really taste different to me. Are the nutrients going down slightly? Maybe less because I vacuum seal them and it's not being exposed to oxygen. In a can, obviously, they're not being exposed to oxygen, so they can't really, degrade significantly, in my opinion. I'm sure over time they will degrade just because they are heat processed. So if you are buying beans in a can or a box, like a Tetra Pak box, like I recommend, always check the expiration date or the best buy date on there, and you want to get the one furthest away. The best buy date by the furthest away means it was made, more recently, and it's not going to expire as quickly, so it's cooked more sooner rather than later, so you should get a little bit more nutrition, but it's probably not significant, all right? If I cook my beans, I soak them, and then that starts the sprouting process, although they don't grow the tails, and then I cook them, and then I like to eat them, a little bit warm, but not too hot to burn my tongue. I hate that. And then I'll enjoy them. They taste pretty good, and then the rest actually will go in the fridge in a mason jar under vacuum, stored. And so, for example, the beans and rice I ate today, I did last week, a week ago. Okay. They didn't lose all the nutrition. They maybe lost a little tiny bit, but I really can't taste the difference so much. That being said, you said they become all starch. So here's the thing based on the science is that, when you basically cook and cool the beans, right, the resistant starch does get more resistant, meaning actually you get better health benefits. There's more resistant starch that'll feed your good bacteria. You could then potentially have better, blood sugar regulation effects. It's like the second meal effect from the beans. So you could handle your fruits better because you're heating and now cooling the beans down. Of course, I always recommend, and nobody else is going to tell you this, is to store it under vacuum without the oxygen. So I remove up to 82% of the oxygen out of my mason jars when I store my food. Link down below to my video where I discuss this more if you're interested. So yeah, that's what I would tell you on that one. So I would say don't be scared of canned beans. That being said, I would be scared of the canned beans that, don't say no BPA. It's rare that I buy canned beans, all right? Let's see, next question is from Maddie Tresky. John, do you follow a low-fat diet? I've heard you share some of the unsatisfactory and concerning lab results following a 100% raw vegan diet. Do you think it's worth upping foods like avocados or omega-3 from flax or chia to an amount that Dr. Brooke Goldner has much success with, etc.? Did you share omega-3s? Was a concern for you? I'd find that surprising given the abundance of leafy greens you eat, which many raw and plant-based experts recommend getting fatty acids from. All right. So do I follow a low-fat diet? I guess what is your definition of a low-fat diet? So in the raw vegan movement, basically, low-fat diet is usually considered 10% or less from fat. I do not eat 10% or less from fat. That means no overt fats. I think that can be not good for your long-term health, especially if you're not eating enough leafy greens. That being said, you could do a low-fat diet if you're eating enough leafy greens and get enough omega-3s from your greens and be pretty healthy, according to some of the data my friend who does blood tests has shared with me. So I'd say that. I would say that it is worth upping omega-3s from flax. I did see some blood testing results from a person lately who was eating like an avocado a day, and their omega-6 level was way too high, which means they were probably not eating enough flax seeds and eating too much avocados. So it's very important to have our fats in balance. I think this is actually very critical. This unfortunately is not talked enough about in the raw vegan movement. I think everybody should get an omega-3, I think it's omega-3 quant test to see where they're at. I have gotten my omega-3 testing before. This was before I started upping my greens significantly. And actually, as being a raw foodist, thought I was like eating pretty good and ate flax seeds and all this stuff. My omega-3 levels were not where I wanted them to be. They were not there. So I had to up my flax and up my greens, right? And so I haven't gotten retested since then, but I do believe it's very important to get enough omega-3s in us. I'm a big fan of the flax seeds, at least a tablespoon a day. That being said, I do want to comment. You said that something about unsatisfactory lab tests following 100% raw vegan diet. So my lab tests were pretty good, but there are some things that I could improve upon, and that's why I started eating some heat processed food to see if I could get them even better. I will say that I have other friends that are raw vegan that do have excellent blood tests. So, I may be an outlier. That being said, a lot of people doing raw vegan that are getting excellent blood tests haven't been doing it for 30 years like I have, where our body does go through changes over time, in my opinion. All right, next question is from Tai Tunka. I love beans. Cooking them is time consuming, so sometimes I either cook them or buy them in BPA cans. Hopefully you said BPA free cans, or in glass, much more expensive. I've never tried these that you have here in the video, which are the tetrapaks, because I've always thought, how come they stay fresh there without any preservatives? Not sure what that material is, but if there's no salt and nothing else, how can they really stay fresh in those packaging? Anyone can answer that for me, please, as I always avoid these to buy. I always thought maybe there's something else that they're not there to tell us. All right, so here's the thing. Basically, I buy the beans in the Tetra Pak. I recommend the 365 brand, available at Whole Foods. They're organic. They're from Italy. There's no salt added. And, these are in Tetra Paks, basically, or Tetra-like packing, which are aseptic packaging, which are basically like a can, but without the can. They have an aluminum foil kind of lining on the inside, and they're paper. So it's a lot safer material than cans, but they do the same thing. They have the barrier integrity. Once you cook things and you put them in like an oxygen deprived environment, aseptically packaged, right, at the right temperature, using the right equipment, it's basically sterile and can keep just as a can would. Now, I'm sure the aseptic packaging would break down sooner than a can if you just like left it outside and there's like, apocalypse now or something happening. The cans would still be good and the part of the paperboard would break down sooner. But, in the sake of just buying them and eating them, I don't think it's going to be an issue. So, yeah, they don't add anything to them. They're quite plain. They're the healthiest beans I could find at the most affordable price because I'm quite frugal myself, all right? So that's what I'd say. All right, last question here is from Fiending. Hi, John, are you getting enough good bacteria in your gut from fermented foods? Do you think culturing your own yogurt and kefir to consume every day is beneficial to your health? Do you think L-reuteri is important for our gut? Thank you. All right, so am I getting enough good bacteria in my gut from fermented foods? Well, I try every day. I try to eat or drink something fermented at least once, right? Whether that's fermented vegetables or my fermented fruit juice, link down below if I remember that, or fermented like coconut kefir from Kefir Lab, or some kombucha sometimes. I think it's very important to eat fermented foods based on the published studies. I think that more raw vegans should be eating fermented foods because they're actually a living food. Very important. Yes, I think it's very important. So do I get enough good bacteria? I mean, I would like to up the amount of fermented foods I get in my diet, and I like to ferment more foods myself. It's on my to-do list, but I'm always so busy doing other things. Do you think culturing your own yogurt and kefir to consume every day is beneficial to your health? I would say yes. That being said, I would also say I would recommend, changing up your cultures that you're using to culture them, because if you're always using the same culture, you're getting a lot of that bacteria, but you could be missing other bacteria. And then I do think that L. reuteri is very important for our gut. So it's on my list, and actually I already got the L. reuteri and I already got the yogurt maker. So I got to figure out the best way to make an L. reuteri yogurt, because that can significantly increase the amount of L. reuteri that we could get in us, and then have it in a fun way. And yes, some of the studies show that even eating fermented foods is even more important for diversity in our gut bacteria than eating additional types of plant foods, and also reduces inflammation and other markers in the blood that they've tested. This is a study I think they did at Stanford. So yeah, very important fermented foods. I encourage everybody out there to eat at least one fermented food a day, if not multiple types. All right, so that's all the questions I have for today. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Also, be sure to share this with other people you think it could help out. And also, don't forget, make sure you click that subscribe button right down below. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as many videos come out, which are coming out every 5 to 7 days. Won't want you to miss any episode. And also be sure to check out past episodes. Past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes at this time. Teach you guys all about eating a healthy fruit and vegetable based raw diet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with okraw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.